how the other person feels or what they want or what they're going through. And by this I mean, let me give you a case in point. So you have, I don't know, like a diamond bank come to you and say, oh, this is how we are as a people. These are our pain points. These are our aspirations. And they say to you, oh, we want our office to look like a Google office. Now, there are two things that could happen. One, some designers will just go and look at the Google office and say, oh, this is what the Google office looks like now. They have this sort of designs here. They have this sort of spaces here. I will just replicate it, right? There's another school of thought and another set of designers that will say, all right, I hear everything that you're saying, but I feel like there's some things that you're not saying. So what they then do is they go into what we do, for example. We go into the spaces of our clients. So, for example, Diamond Bank, we had to go to their offices and kind of work with them for like 3 days to really understand how they were as a business and what the work culture was. And I'll tell you something. 50%, they didn't even know they had some problems that they were not sharing with us, long and short. 50%, Hassan, are you talking to me? Okay. So we were able to identify some other issues that they had that they didn't even know were existing. So if we did not look at them from the point of empathy to say, okay, we hear what you're saying, but we want to know more about you so we can know how to solve your problems. Because as designers, we're actually problem solvers. And the beauty about it for me is, in design, I'm sure Tosin can agree to that. You know, we do a lot of work and nobody knows how much time you're putting in, what energy you're putting in. The comfort for me is when I apply empathy, I'm already taking care of everybody in that building. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm connected to everyone who's using the spaces that we have designed in some way, right? So that is why interior design is important for me. So I said design is empathy in preferring solutions, whether it's in as a product or a service, like what we do. We are in the service industry. And I said also that empathy breaks down barriers and promotes the design of products and services that are human-centered. So what you are designing for is not just yourself, right? Yes, you're human, but you're designing for the human who has come to meet you for solutions. So it is human-centered because you understand how the person functions and you have designed for the person to function more efficiently, right? And empathy is really important in design if you're going to look at the profession of interior design, because it's at the forefront of your whole design thinking cycle. And by that I mean, you know, when you're designing, whether it's for a product or a service, you go through that whole cycle. The first stage is to empathize, to try and understand what the other person is going through and what they really require. The next thing is to define what that thing is, what you are going to be providing for them, and then go to ideating it. Ideating means that you will try out different scenarios to see which one best suits them and which will best address their issues. And then you go to prototype. You choose the one that works, and then you apply it. Then you test it. By testing, I mean, can you hear me? By testing could actually mean that you implement something. Testing also is like, let me give you a case in point for Diamond Bank. All right, so we talked about having, so it was something they didn't have before, these informal meeting spaces. So what we did was, after we went into their space to kind of work with them, we actually brought in the sort of furniture that we were looking at providing in their spaces, and we spread it around their office to see how they will respond to those spaces. And the response was positive. And because of that, we then repeated it and implemented it in the final product, which is their now head office, which Access Bank has taken up. Now, the other thing is this, for interior design. We spend about 90% of our time indoors. So surely somebody must be taking care of what happens within those spaces when we're there. Again, the reason is our buildings, why we even design them at all. The buildings that we live in, work, learn, relax, sleep, whatever, they profoundly impact our health, our well-being, and productivity. Whether it's in your office, whether it's at home, whether it's in the retail space, the way it's designed would affect how you are as a person. So it's important that someone, right, takes up the responsibility of ensuring that that experience, the user experience in those spaces are positive to the people who are going to be using the space or inhabiting the spaces. So the ultimate goal of our buildings and communities really is to create positive human experience. We don't just design because we see something nice on Pinterest and we just want to plunk it on somebody else's project. We design because we want to have a positive influence, or you want the people who are using the space to have a positive experience. So for me, interior design matters because empathy matters. As a human being, in everything that we do, design is in everything that we do. Whether it's in marriage, right? There's a design to it, right? There's a way you must function as a partner or whatever. Whether it's in raising your children, you must also kind of apply it. So if you go through this whole design thinking cycle that I just showed to you, you will see that there is design in everything. And like I said, for you to be able to be a good designer, you have to show empathy so that you understand what the next person will require. That is what will make your product or service a good one. So I'm just going to quickly, I've said all the things I think I need to say, but I will just define what, because I get asked a lot of time, what is interior design? And there's a second question I get asked, which I'll kind of elaborate on. So I will explain what interior design is. First, I said design is empathy in preferring solutions, right? Then the other thing for me is that it is an art and science, right, of enhancing the interior of a building to achieve healthier and more aesthetically pleasing environments for the people using the space. Now, the other question I get asked is, what is the difference between an interior designer and a decorator? Does anybody here know? Do you know? Okay. Yes. Yes. That's basically, that's the difference. So the interior designer actually designs and does what? The spaces. Okay. Okay, that's fair enough. You're actually, in that regard, you're right. I'll just quickly tell you, from my understanding, what the differences are. The first one, I've explained to you what an interior designer does and what interior design is, which is the art and science of understanding people's behavior to create functional spaces within a building, right? Whereas interior decoration is the furnishing or adorning of a space with fashionable and beautiful elements. So, yes, she was right. Thank you very much. Thank you. So let's give her a round of applause. Come on, guys. Right. For interior design, it is important because there's a technical aspect to it. You have to understand structures of buildings. You have to understand the science of spaces, right? And because of that, you need to be schooled for things like that. You could have started out with architecture or with building technology like I did, but it's important for you to get some sort of formal education or apprenticeship of some, I don't know, vocation in the built environment, right? Whereas for interior decoration, you do not need any formal education. You could actually just, it could start out as a passion. Again, you could start out as doing an apprenticeship with somebody who does the same thing and then just run with it. But it is also important, my last point here is that interior designers may decorate, like what happened to us on the building that we did. did all the design, the layouts, and all the sites that went with it, and we also furnished the place. So interior designers can actually decorate, but it cannot be the other way around, where you have interior decorators designing, right? On to the next point. So I'm just going to quickly run, because I've been given 2 minutes. For considering interior design as a business. So if you are considering interior design as a business, there are 4 questions that I will ask you, right? So I have prepared my slide like, we're having a one-on-one. The first one is the why. For me, everything that I do is driven by a why. If I'm able to establish the reason why I'm doing something, it helps me to just... Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. So for you, if you're considering the business of interior design, you have to ask yourself why you are doing it in the first place. And you must always be true to yourself. If you do not have, I hate to use the word, but then it's passion. If you don't have something that is driving you to go into interior design, for example, I would suggest that you just be true to yourself and ask yourself what you really are as a person, who you are as a person. I've said here that for you to be able to be a good designer, you have to have empathy, right? So again, I'm sorry I keep picking up on you. I'm picking you out. But why do you want to go into interior design? Why? Mm-hmm. Yes. 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 Yeah. That is it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. That's fair enough. Well done. Well done. That's a good enough reason. Right. Then the other questions you need to ask yourself, I'm just going to run through quickly, but if you have any questions, please, I will leave my Instagram handle, and you can just DM me, and we could just have a discussion. Right. The other thing you need to ask yourself is, why would your clients, right, or the market you're trying to serve, why would they choose you over another person? It is important to kind of set yourself apart. You have to figure out what your unique selling position is, right? You have 5 other people here who want to do the same thing. Say you had only this space as your world, right? What would you be doing differently from the other person so that you will always get some work to do? You have to figure that out. The other question is, what problems would you be fixing? I think that also is linked with the second question I asked. Then the other question you need to ask is, how much capital do you have to invest? But the biggest question is, because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, I must tell you, it's not the easiest thing. It isn't. But the first speaker came in and said that to be an entrepreneur, you will have to live a very lonely life. It is really, really lonely at the top, because there are decisions that you have to make, and you have to be held responsible for those decisions. So you need to ask yourself whether you really want to be an entrepreneur, or whether you want to just, go on there, a business or whatever that's doing the things that you want to do as a person, and then just plug into that. I do not believe that everybody can be an entrepreneur. I think that we all have a part and a role to play in this space, right? Then the next question you need to ask yourself is the who. You must identify the clients that you're serving, right? I told you about the clients that we serve. We do a lot of commercial interiors. Residential interiors, a few of them, yes. They usually will come from maybe these high net worth individuals, or the global companies, maybe some staff there wants to do something. But we majorly focus on commercial interiors, because we believe that we do them well. You must also do a market survey of some sort, and then get feedback. When you get feedback, you redefine what your objectives are, or what your plans are as a business. The third question I'll ask you is the how. How are you going to then start your journey as an entrepreneur, or start your journey as a business person in the interior design sector? First, you have to make it official. Just start. Register the name. In registering the name, you have to consider all sorts of things like your tax, because there will be tax liabilities, and the tax, there are many. You have all sorts of things. Educational tax, FRS tax, LIRS, there are many. So you have to be informed and keep yourself informed on all of those things so you know what you're getting yourself into. Then you have to develop a working business plan. I've called it a working business plan because I do not believe that a business plan should be static. I call it a working business plan because the environment we live in, everything is fast. It's even become worse these days because of technology. So you must learn to adapt. And in adapting, you have to be able to kind of monitor the trends, see what's happening, see what the market is asking for, the market that you're serving, see what you're asking for, and then you go back to your business plan, tweak it a little. Your business plan in the course of 1 year can change 5 times. So as an entrepreneur, you have to know that. The third thing is that you must build your team. Sometimes you not have enough money to hire somebody. You can borrow. In borrowing, I mean you could outsource. You could get like a contract staff or whatever. You partner with somebody to do something. The other thing would be to hire. The third one, I won't talk about it here. Then the last question in the how is you have to develop a sales plan. The first speaker here said something, but I will just put it the way I usually would say it to people. Until you start to talk about what you have, right, or who you are, or what you're about, you are not making sales, right? Matter of fact, until you are able to get the attention of the buyer, you are not making any sales. So my colleague here, my former colleague here, Tosin talked about that also. You have to push what you are selling. It is extremely important because you might be a fantastic designer, but if you just sit down waiting for people to call you to come and do X, Y, and Z, nobody is going to come. You have to be able to go out and push what it is that you're selling. Now, when you start your design business, there are certain things, sorry about that, there are certain things that you need to consider. Like I said, things will continue to shift, things will change. You have to start to think about upscaling your business. So say, for example, you start out as, because there are different things that you can do in the interior design sector. You don't have to all be interior designers. There are other areas that you can venture into. Again, if you chat me on the side, I can talk to you about that. And then when you do that, you want to start to look at upscaling your business. But in upscaling your business, please, 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 you must remember the why you went into it in the first place, right? The why might shift because maybe the market that you're serving actually is responding differently. Then you need to adapt. But always remember the why you started your business in the first place. Secondly, you need to integrate technology. The larger you grow, the more efficient you need to run. There's something called human error. We can't always rely on human beings to, run something. So you have to try and integrate technology in what it is you're doing, and you have to be sensitive to the market, and then just keep growing. Now I'll just go. This is the last slide. Lessons that I've learned on this This is my 11th year on this interior design journey. So there are certain things that you have to consider. Cash flow. I can't really elaborate on that, but what I mean is this: do not run yourself into the ground. There are people who start businesses and they start to eat into their capital, and they're not thinking about the next things that need to happen. Somebody pays you to do work, maybe not for consultancy, to buy things, and you start to eat into it. That should never happen if you want to survive as a business. 2, you must remain curious. And that, I think that aligns with this entire thing that we're doing. You must always ask questions. Ask questions, so that you can improve on whatever it is that you're selling. Thirdly, you must be disciplined. The fourth thing is you have to be flexible, whether it's with the market that you're serving, whether it's with your staff or your business models. You have to be flexible. The fifth thing, which is the most important for me, is you have to be fearless. Because if you continue to be afraid to set out, right, assuming that entrepreneurship is the thing that is for you, you will never get ahead. 6 is you have to remain optimistic. I mean, when we look around us, the situations are dire, but you always have to see the glass half full, not half empty. That is the only way that you will get ahead. Paperwork. Always document. Like she said, whether it's in your advertising, whether it's in the back end, like your accounting systems, your contracts with staff, your contracts with clients, you have to always document. Make sure your paperwork is up to date with tax and things like that. I talked about tax earlier on. People, when you start a business, you have to do two things. One, you have to find the people who are aligned with the vision that you have as a business or as a person, right? And you have to ensure that they stay with that vision. Else, because they're the people who are going to run your projects for you or run your vision, because you can't do it alone, you have to work with people, you will run into trouble. Your reputation is very important. You have to keep that in mind. And then the last thing is you have to be resilient. So resilience, fearlessness, optimism, especially in our economy, is very important for us as interior designers. So that's the end of my presentation. Do we have any questions? No? Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.